Imagine standing on the open, windswept steppes of Ukraine 25,000 years ago. A screaming glacial wind is howling down from the North Pole, driving the ambient temperature down to a lethal -40°C. There are no trees for miles, just a flat, frozen desert of permafrost. Stepping out into this cold for more than an hour means a slow, agonizing death as hypothermia shuts down your organs. Yet just beneath a ridge, a plume of smoke rises. Inside a dome-shaped structure, a family is sitting comfortably. They aren't shivering, they are warm, talking, and working with their tools. The temperature inside their dwelling is a shocking +20°C. Without a single brick, a single piece of lumber, or a shred of modern insulation, our Ice Age ancestors engineered a 60-degree temperature differential. They didn't just survive the ultimate winter, they built architectural masterpieces that defied the laws of their environment. To beat the degrees C freeze, they had to become master structural engineers, utilizing the only abundant material the Mammoth steppe provided, the bones of the very giants they hunted. 1. The ultimate material, the Mammoth bone framework. When you have no trees to harvest for wooden beams, you have to look to the heavy anatomy of the megafauna. Across Europe and Siberia, ancient humans constructed what archaeologists call Mesurich-style mammoth bone houses. These weren't flimsy teepees. They were massive, highly engineered fortresses. A single hut could require the bones of up to 100 mammoths, meticulously sorted by structural function. The foundation, interlocking mammoth mandibles, jawbones, were stacked in a circular ring, facing inward to create a heavy, dense base that could withstand the shifting of freezing permafrost. The pillars, massive mammoth tusks, often weighing over 100 pounds each, were curved toward one another to form perfect, interlocking roof arches. The weight distribution. Large leg bones like femurs and humeri were used as cross beams, slotted together like puzzle pieces to distribute the weight of the roof evenly. By using bone instead of wood, they created a rigid, heavy skeleton that could easily support hundreds of pounds of insulating material without collapsing under the weight of winter snow. 2. The multi-layered thermal insulation shield. Having a solid bone frame is only half the battle. If the wind can whistle through the gaps, you will still freeze to death. To achieve that coveted +20°C interior, ancient humans developed a multi-layered insulation system that rivals modern green building techniques. First, they draped heavy, thick hides, such as woolly rhino and mammoth pelts, over the bone framework. But the real secret weapon was the earth itself. They packed thick layers of turf, sod, and insulating mud over the hides. In the dead of winter, they allowed heavy snow to pack tightly over the exterior of the dome. While we think of snow as cold, packed snow is actually an incredible thermal insulator because it traps millions of tiny pockets of air. This exterior shield effectively stopped the degrees C wind in its tracks, sealing the interior heat inside a massive thermal envelope. 3. The sunken entrance and cold traps. If you cut a standard door into a house during a blizzard, the moment you open it, all your warm air rushes out and cold air floods the floor. Ice Age engineers solved this using advanced fluid dynamics and physics. They didn't build doors at ground level. Instead, they dug out a sunken, subterranean trench that tunneled underneath the foundation ring, emerging upward through the floor inside the hut. This is known as a cold trap. Because cold air is denser and heavier than warm air, the freezing glacial wind rushing toward the structure would get trapped down in the low tunnel, unable to rise into the living space. Meanwhile, the light, warm air inside the dome remained trapped at the top, completely undisturbed by the draft. 4. The internal radiator, the continuous bone fire. Once you have sealed the structure and blocked the wind, you need a heat source. In the center of the hut sat a beautifully maintained hearth, but with no wood to burn, how did they keep a fire going all winter long? They weaponized the chemical properties of mammoth bone. Fresh or partially dried mammoth bones are packed with high-energy lipids, fats, and marrow. Ancient humans would start a small base fire using dry tundra grasses, and then feed it a steady diet of broken bone fragments. The fat inside the bones would catch fire, creating a slow-burning, intensely hot, and incredibly efficient fuel source. The heavy bone walls of the hut acted as a thermal mass. They would absorb the intense radiant heat from the central bone fire during the day and slowly radiate that heat back into the room all night long, ensuring the temperature never dropped into the danger zone. Architectural triumph. The measure-rich bone houses represent a level of logistical and social organization that completely shatters the stereotype of the primitive caveman. To build a single hut required a community to harvest tons of bone, transport it across miles of frozen terrain, and engineer the precise geometry needed to prevent a catastrophic structural collapse. Our ancestors looked out at a lethal, frozen wasteland and refused to freeze. They used the remains of the Ice Age giants to build a warm, safe sanctuary, proving that human ingenuity has always been our ultimate shield against the elements.